Hello and welcome everybody to the Marbles podcast with Spooo and StandardDamage. Me.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing? Welcome on in. Oh, another Friday, my friends.
It
Happy
is.
Friday.
Another Friday. We've been doing this, I think, 10 weeks now?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty crazy.
Somewhere along those lines, yeah. I haven't been counting. So
You haven't been counting.
Plus,
No,
I've
I
missed
have
like
not
3 or
been
4. So my number's a little off compared to you guys. Got lost in the desert a few times. I don't even know what happened.
Oh, man. But today, talking about how long we've been doing this and everything, talking about time and the power you hold once you understand that this whole process isn't a rush,
yeah.
right? There's no rush to getting to the end because why do you want it to be over?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There is no end.
There's no end.
It's all about the journey. Let me switch those lights off. I suddenly realized I had an extra light on there. It's about the fact that it's a constant journey without a destination. And I think that a lot of people lose sight of that. And a lot of people try to do the whole thing at once instead of allowing things to layer the way they need to. That's where a lot of that comes from. And it's a lesson that especially the longer you stream or create content at any level for that matter, you're going to learn that lesson over and over and over again. Like you'll have this big grandiose idea and then think that you have to do the whole thing at once instead of building it in sections over time. And yeah, people really stress themselves out really badly doing things like that.
Right. It's a lot of evolution involved. And people use the comparison a marathon, but even like a marathon does have an ending, but the person doesn't stop training for more marathons, right?
Right.
And wanting to continue to do more. And just comparing it to a marathon is great because thinking about it, if you just sprint right off the bat in a marathon, you're going to tire yourself out. You're going to get sick of it. You're going to want to quit. You got to take your time with it and just know that it's an evolution.
Yeah. Connect this because I had a really big idea for marbles right from the start once things started picking up, and I kind of rushed into it and started expanding a little bit too quickly, and it just started overwhelming myself before I was ready as a person, right?
Mm-hmm.
To accept these new challenges that I was welcoming in. And that's why I think it's important to slow down a little bit and just realize that the work's going to get done as long as you're working. You keep working hard, you keep plugging away, and keep building this thing brick by brick, whatever you're working on.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jamie.
No, go ahead, Spook.
Something I was actually thinking about. I was thinking about you the other night, Mike, and and not to blast you or anything, because you have all sorts of insane, amazing ideas, but I think you jump the gun a lot. Like you go so far ahead and you're like, man, I see this huge, amazing idea, which is great.
Yeah.
But you know the process of building up to it. But sometimes I get overwhelmed sometimes when you're talking about ideas, like how the hell are we going to get there? Like we're right
Mm-hmm.
we got to build it up a little bit. But it is great to have those ideas in general and know that you have to. Once you know you have to evolve into it and build up into it, then coming up with those giant ideas isn't so bad.
Yeah.
Because you know what it takes to get there.
Yeah, I mean, like, the big ideas are the fun ones, right? Where you look so far ahead and you're like, oh, man, this could
this happen?
Yeah, and so you start planning for it. Then it's like you realize how far ahead that is.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens a lot. You think that, and sometimes what you'll do to yourself too is you'll have an end goal in mind and you'll look at something and you go, you know what, that's a really simple one. I can knock that out in a day. And then while you're starting to build it out, you have 15 other ideas to how to make it better. And by the time you're done, you realize that there's another 10 steps that you need to go through to get to that final idea. and you have to fight that disappointment a little bit. It's like, oh man, I thought I was going to have that done today. And then you realize, you know what, I'll just have to layer it in steps, and you got to allow yourself that little bit of a time too. The thing that gets lost a lot of times is when you give it to your community at once, all at once. Like if you create a really big idea, you lose that increased excitement over time and that continuous interest. When you layer things in smaller increments, it's a lot easier to keep your community interested in what's going on because they're part of it. They're part of the evolution, and that also gives them some sense of ownership in it as well. Because, you know, it's just like we talk about in seasons, right? Yeah, I was there for season 3 when we only had 12 tracks. Well, your community goes through the same thing.
Right.
And I think people will forget that a lot. You know, it's like, yeah, I remember when you were in that big cavernous room and we heard nothing but reverb from your voice, and now it sounds like an FM radio or something like that. Like people will actually talk about things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, they'll go back and they'll pull up, like, you know, and my community does it to me once in a while too. They'll pull up an old clip and say, remember this? And it's like, oh yeah, back when I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah.
Immediately.
It's the idea of, but really, and it's cool though, because it's the idea that the community gets to evolve with you. But again, if you try to throw everything out there at once, they don't get that experience.
Yeah.
It's just like, whoa, you know, and you give their, you know, other than, you know, it's like throwing them into it instead of loving them into it kind of thing.
And you can always just create something so simple, and then you run, like, if thinking about streaming or maybe even YouTube video or anything, you have a simple idea and you start doing it, and you never know what kind of other ideas are gonna start layering on top of that, like you said, and you just add a little bit at a time, and it becomes this whole amazing thing in the end.
A piece of art.
Exactly. I mean, start with, I had somebody ask me about this not that long ago, and I told them, I said, start with the basics. Get some basic scenes set up, you know, because they're asking me of like the progression of ideas. And it's like, you know, and it's like, start with the basics, get the scene set up, get it basically framed out the way you want it. And when I say basics, I mean really basic, like decide what kind of background music, if you're going to even have any, you know, like what kind of background music you want to have for a particular themed day. You know, what kind of overlay do you want to have? What kind of basic alerts do you want to have? And go.
Yeah.
And see how it flies. And because once I can guarantee you that no matter how much you plan something out, once you get into it, you're going to have more ideas.
Right.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I always have my notepad software up, so that I don't forget anything while I'm streaming. It's like, oh yeah, you know what, that would be great. And I'm sitting there typing away. But that's just it. The other thing is, but there's another side to that, and it becomes speaking of time, you can also waste your own time by overdoing something right off the bat and then getting into it and finding out that your community doesn't like it.
Right.
Or that you don't even like it.
You hate it. You know, and it's like, and I've done that a few times now where I've gotten all this stuff prepared and then I get into the middle of it and I'm like, why did I do all this work on this? I hate this. This sucks. I don't ever want to do this again, you know?
And you can find yourself in a rough spot if, like, maybe you do that and some of your audience likes it and you're like, I don't really like it. You're trying to find the balance of like, can I start liking this a little bit more or something? Because, you know, you want to keep your people happy too.
Yeah, exactly. But you just, and a lot of that is just how you set it up. It's like, you know, and I'll always tell people, this is an experiment. I'm not sure if you're gonna like it. I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it, but let's give it a shot together and see how we all feel about it. You know, and by the end of the stream, usually I've got a pretty good idea, you know, just from the reactions from the community and how I'm feeling about it in the pit of my stomach, whether or not it's something we should continue to try.
Right.
But again, the point is, like, if you overdo it and you put all this work, you can end up putting all this work into something. And as we know, time gets more and more precious the further along you get in content creation. You can waste a lot of time on something that you may never use again.
Right.
So it's better to layer it in gently and see how it's going to fly. And then if it's really good, if you feel really good about it, your community feels really good about it, then start layering more stuff in. But don't waste your time right up front. That gets a little nutsy.
there's just so many pieces to the puzzle of content creation and streaming that you just gotta break things down bit by bit as well, and not try to design the whole thing out. Because when you look at streaming, it's like looking at the blueprint of a room and trying to plan for that, right? And you're like, oh, okay, well, all my stuff would fit like this, and then you set it up and you actually get in there and you're like, I actually don't like the feel of this.
Yeah.
Right? On paper it looked good, but then when I got in, I was like, it just didn't feel. So like, it's just designing into it, right? Once you open OBS and you put something in place, you're like, oh, I get it, how it works. And then you start being able to design for it and start being able to plug your ideas in.
It's like you just got to dive in, That's
exactly,
when
yeah.
A lot of people start picking things up is when they just finally dive in instead of sitting around thinking about it all the time.
Right. Just plug in something and try, and then evolve from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It goes back to that feeling of perfection, right? Because it's not going to feel perfect right off the bat ever, and that's going to prevent some people from doing anything. So it's like you got to get that out of your mind too, that it's just not going to be perfect ever, and you just got to dive in and go. Yeah. If you want it, you just got to go.
And then you'll always learn something new that changes your perspective on it.
Right.
And you might be like, oh, well, this doesn't fit anymore.
Well, the lack of perfection is part of the fun too.
Yeah.
If things were perfect all the time, there would be no fun. There would be nothing else to reach for. It's like, it's like you'd come out on stream and go, yep, nailed it. And then there'd be nothing else to work on, and it's the fact that there are screw ups, the fact that there are that there are mistakes. And Mike, you make a great point. Like, there are so many things that look good on paper, or so many things that look good planned out. And then you go to execute and it's like, nope, that's not going to work at all, and but that's part of the fun of it is the trial and error. People are so afraid to screw up.
Right.
Yeah.
They're so afraid to screw up. And why? It's like, get out there and make the mistakes and learn from them.
That can become part of the content too. Like, if you have fun with it and you can laugh at yourself, you screw up and you're learning from it and evolving, and you're learning what your audience likes. Maybe you do something funny that you don't realize that your audience likes so much, and you're like, maybe I can start doing that more.
The perception of failure being negative is an interesting topic in itself, because we're all trained that way. Like, we grow up that way.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, you lost. It's not good. But it's like it should be like, you lost. What did you learn from this, and how do we adapt for the next time and get back on that horse and try again?
Yeah. If things were perfect every single go, it would, when you do achieve that perfection, which does happen from time to time, you have that stream where it's like, yeah, I nailed it, or, oh man, that turned out, that part of the game I designed turned out really, really good, or there's a million examples of that. But it makes the success that much sweeter too. When you get it, again, if things were perfect all the time, it would be boring. And I get excited about making mistakes. I get excited about screwing up. Besides the fact that it provides extra, like you said, extra comedy. It goes beyond that though. It's like, oh man, and also, and again, it goes to, in terms of like time management, writing everything down is key, so that you don't forget some of the good ideas that come to you while you're screwing up,
right?
While you're making those mistakes. It's really important. It's really
and I think
important.
Writing things down while you're streaming, 100% amazing. But then afterwards, if you can take those thoughts that you had and prioritize them, and put them in order of like what's most important to you in your stream and things like that, that's like a beautiful next step. And then you kind of have a list of things that you want to work on that are prioritized towards you, and not just a jumble of, because after a stream, I've written down so many things. Sometimes I'm just like, all right, what's going on here? And I try to like reorganize it to make sure I know what's happening.
And that's one mistake you definitely don't want to make, Spooo. That's a great point. Is a lot of people will write all this stuff down and then they'll never look at it again.
Yeah.
You have to go back and look at it, organize it, and build it in. Like because now I'm working on theme days, it's been a little bit easier to organize because every single day has its own separate note. So I'll take this collection of notes that I've taken during the stream, and I'll build those ideas in. And sometimes the nice thing about having that too is that if there's ideas I've written down that at the time seemed really good, but when I read them back over, I'm like, you know what, that isn't what I want to do. Seeing it in that organized list like that makes me realize, you know what, no, that was not the greatest idea, and I I can toss it back out or not add it to the list and not waste my
Yeah,
time with it.
what you just said helps simplify it too. If you have a theme every day, then you know you have like a notepad for Monday and you're everything on Monday, notepad for Tuesday, everything on Tuesday. That's a great way to help simplify it and organize it too.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's been that's a recent thing I figured out, but it's been really, really helpful having those different days broken down and all that. It's like, this is what I want to do for this particular day, you know, and that, again, it just helps keep you organized a bit more.
It's like, man, it's just so crazy thinking of this stuff, how much time you can waste just thinking, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like you get an idea out and then you're like, oh, I want to like think it out more, I want to go deeper into this idea, and then you just spend so much time developing the idea, you never execute on anything. And I find I get sucked in that sometimes, like where I just try to definitely. Like I write something down, I'm like, I like this idea and I want to build it out, and then you start building it out and you spend so much time on it that you forget about other things, or even you just lose sight on what this was supposed to be at the start, because you've worked on it so many times and you've never even let it take shape in deployment.
Something that
now it's already dead.
Yeah.
Something that really, really helps is, it's something that I've been using for years now, and whether it needs to be personal. So whether it takes the form of almost like a daily affirmation, whether it takes the form of a very concrete goal that you want to reach, whatever it is, you need an objective. Like, this is what I want to accomplish with my content. This is what I want to accomplish with my game. This is what I want to accomplish with this video. Whatever it is, you need to give yourself a very clear concept. And what that will do, and what made me think about it, Mike, is what you were just talking about. That keeps you from, like, if this is the path you're supposed to walk, it keeps you from doing this midstream. You know, it's like you want to understand, like, if your goal is, you know, to connect, or if your goal is to teach, or if your goal is comedy, whatever it is, you need to make sure that you have that, and you need to make sure that you read it every day or look it over every day, and make sure that you keep that main goal in mind, because that will keep you from straying off onto projects that, again, become time wasters. You know, you always need to keep in mind exactly what your goal is and what it is that you want to accomplish.
The overall goal, right? The main path you're walking at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that way, when you get that wild hair, you can look at it and go, now, does this idea match up with what my objectives are?
Right.
And if the answer is yes, add it to the list. If the answer is no, throw it overboard. You know,
always have your mind on that main path, so you don't go astray.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Very key. Very key.
I like that.
I thought that was interesting. Nerd in a Skirt just said, have a do and do not list. I've never even thought of having a do not list.
Well, we've kind of talked about it before, like, you know, language and smoking and things like that. You know, that's kind of like a do not list. But I guess that's more of when you're on stream. You know, there's things that might affect your stream,
right?
Yeah.
Negatively, that you might not think about. That, let's say, like we've said before, if you're smoking like a cigarette on stream, there's people who are going to leave your stream because you're smoking a cigarette. But if you're not smoking a cigarette, people aren't going to be like, this guy doesn't smoke cigarettes, I'm out of here. Yeah. Nobody does that. So
no, I understand that concept. Oh yeah, I guess I've just never actually made like, I actually write things down that I want to do, but I don't actually write things down that I don't want to do.
Could be a good reminder of what the things you don't want to do, right? Like making sure you're you're taking care of yourself in that sense.
Yeah, that's a do not list is a really interesting. I never really thought about that either. Of course, my to-do lists are so long that at this point it's like, do I start a do not list on top of it? But it's a very interesting concept. That is a very interesting concept.
I think it's more of a reminder.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have this do not list, so you're reminded to just not do things that maybe you have a habit of falling into, something like
Right.
that. Just to remind yourself to not do those things. I can't think of anything specifically, but maybe you get lost in ideas too much, and you can have some sort of reminder that's like, "Hey, focus."
Yeah.
Get out of that cyclone.
Well, it could be very like a do not list could be very, very effective for self-improvement as well. Like, you know, when you go back, like, you know, like when we talk about going back and looking over your own VODs, looking over your own content and how important that is for self-improvement. Every time somebody comes to me and says, well, I don't like watching my own VODs, I don't like looking at myself. Well, stop cringing and go do it anyway. Because if you're doing things and you have habits and you have idiosyncrasies that you don't like, going back and watching them will lead you down a path of self-improvement. It's like, okay, maybe I repeat myself too much, or maybe I'm saying too much, or whatever. That would actually make for a good do not list. It's like this week on my do not list, I am going to work on saying less.
Right. You have that mental whatever in your head, and since you wrote it down, next time you're streaming, you're like, okay, every time I say I'm gonna notice it, and then I gotta try to overcome it. Because I remember doing that with like public speaking stuff. Like you think about every time you say Well, I did anyway. I was sitting up there doing a speech, and you say and then you're like, oh god, what have I done? I said and then you say again. You're like, oh no.
I've actually been sitting down with my podcast Spooo just along those lines, and actually making hash marks.
Every
because
time
I have to, when I audio edit, I edit down the whole thing anyway for an hour, and it's really only an hour, but it's a great exercise. And I was actually hashing every time I said and I've been working on saying it less along the way.
So that's kind of like a do not list. I mean, like I said, I think it's just like more of a reminder, not maybe making a list can be helpful, and like looking at it every day and reminding yourself, hey, this is the stuff I need to stop doing to improve my stream, or to improve whatever I'm doing in general. And then to maintain that in your head by seeing it every day will affect what you're doing too.
Yeah, I think I think self-improvement is one of the biggest obstacles for so many streamers, like streamers that you see, especially that are 2 years into this. And I am really big, like I consider it one of the universal truths for every successful streamer, that successful streamers don't give up. At the same time, when you see somebody who's been streaming for 2 years and they've only got 2 people in their stream. Now, I'm not talking about the people that don't care. There's a lot of people out there that have very, very tiny audiences, and they don't care. You know, it's like they're doing it just for the fun of it. They're kicking around, whatever. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who want to grow, and they're struggling with their content. They're struggling with everything, and they're still, you know, and I'm starting to have like some of my OG friends now from back when I first started streaming going, you know, how do I grow? I'm still at 2, or I'm still at 5, or I haven't gotten beyond 10, or whatever the case may be. And I'll go check them out, and they're still doing the same thing that they've always done. And the same, I have made the same point over and over and over again, which is, you're obviously not watching yourself. You're not interested in improving. And every single time I bring it up, I get, well, I don't want to do that. Or, well, that's really not me. And it's like, well, you need to get over that hump. You're going to have to start, you're obviously, if the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results, then right now you are the definition of insanity. You need to do something different. You need to get yourself out there. You need to, like, all the things that we talk about on the podcast all the time. I won't go through the whole list right now, but all these different things that they should be trying, and they're walking this path of self-improvement because they want more from their streaming, but they're not willing to do it, or they're not willing to take the time to do the self-improvement, or they're not willing to take the time to write it down.
Or they get really frustrated, you know, and they stop because they want it to happen quickly. Going back to the whole time thing, they want it to happen quickly. So it's like, they give up so fast. When
Right.
if you realize like these small steps, they're not going to do a lot for you in the short term, but over time it's going to build and build and build and build and build. And it's just going to help you tremendously to understand that aspect of just can't rush it. You
Yeah,
really
yeah.
can't.
You got to just get noisy and let things grow on its own and let an audience grow around what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you have to say the same thing for a long time.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like this podcast, even we've repeated ourselves many, many times, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
But it's
Bring
some
up
of
a
the
lot of the same points.
yeah, but it's some of the core elements to what we do that needs to be repeated. I mean, like even myself, it took a long time for me to absorb the whole social factor and what social media actually does and what it is and how it can improve your business and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it just took me so
For
long to
sure.
absorb that to truly see it. But once I did, then I clicked and I was like, okay, like this is obviously what's needed to do what we're doing in the social space to stay relevant, keep working on your brand and brand awareness. It's just one of those things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's helping us too. Like even repeat, like we come back to a lot of the same points. We do talk about it. We come back to a lot of the same points, I guess,
Yeah.
is the main
We
thing.
do.
But it's so good to remind yourself of that, of those things, and to remind other people. It goes along with exactly what you said. I mean, it's an evolution. The more we do it, the more we're going to understand it, talking about it, the more other people getting involved are going to get other people involved and start understanding it and spreading the word of everything. It just takes time. It takes
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and I would say that the topics that we keep coming back to are probably some of the most critical fundamental basics
Mm.
that need to be discussed over and over and over again. Like they're right now, like I just glanced over at Chad and like Deacon said, repetition is a key element of education. Well, yes, it is. People will hear things several times before it even starts to sink in. I
Right.
can't remember like what the statistic used to be. I think it was like something like 4 or 8 or something like that. But
Mm.
it's really immaterial to this. It's just that repetition is really, really key. The other thing is, as the community grows, and I'm going to say this to all of our fellow streamers that are out there right now as well, you're going to repeat yourself several times. You have a constantly rotating community. And you're going to have different viewers throughout the day. So repeating yourself, even though it seems like you're repeating yourself a lot and it's somewhere in the back of your mind, it's like, I wonder if people are getting sick of hearing me say this.
Right.
But I can guarantee you their odds are they're not.
Yeah.
It's really just a matter of like saying it for everybody new that's coming in.
And that's how you welcome new people in, if new people come in and you're not explaining anything to them, or your chat isn't helping out and trying to explain things to people what's going on, they're just going to leave immediately and feel unwelcomed. So repetition, it's essential for growing an audience.
Yep. And how your chat and your community handle new people coming in it will change depending on the day. Like some days, and I've seen it, like some days everybody is in this like just amazing mood and everybody's just welcoming everybody in like it's clockwork, and it's like I don't have to say anything. Other days it seems like chat is very quiet, or they're more reserved, or maybe they're working on some other things while they're watching the stream and not watching chat as closely, and it becomes very critical. But I don't believe that there's ever a time where, as a streamer, because as a streamer you are truly the leader of your community, so you need to be the one to lead that charge. You need to be the one that's welcoming everybody in. You need to be the one that's taking the lead on educating everybody.
Right.
And for you it's easy because you can be seen and heard, and it's very easy to repeat yourself. Have it, even if to you it seems a little bit canned, having something that you repeatedly say, it does have value, and it's actually got a lot of value to it because it's rehearsed, and because it's rehearsed, it's very smooth, and smooth is a great introduction to anybody new that's coming into your stream.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Just getting used. You just get used to doing stuff, and then it becomes so much easier and easier and easier. Like I guess comparison. The beginning of we've all been kind of getting more and more into podcasts recently.
Yeah.
Like our first podcasts that we've ever done probably weren't so great. They were probably okay, but like I've gotten so much more comfortable in just whatever the hell it is we're doing here. Just talking.
What are we doing here again?
Because like when I first started doing podcasts, I focused on chat a lot.
Right.
Now I'm kind of sniping a lot more and just mainly focusing on what we're talking about and what you guys are saying, and not trying to distract myself from doing that. And that's just things you learn over time, like what works and what doesn't.
Back to the time conversation.
Back to the time machine.
Yeah. Really, but yeah, you get smoother with it. Like my first, I was very grateful that Mike was willing to come over and do my first podcast with me, because I knew I was going to screw it up. And when I went back and watched the VOD, like chat was behind where his camera was, and there's all this craziness going on. But every single time, like you know, again, that goes back to like active watching. Like I looked at that first podcast and I went, that worked, that didn't, that worked, that didn't, and I actually wrote it down. And then the next round I went to make a couple of improvements. And like you just said, Spooo, what happens is you start getting used to it and you start getting more comfortable with certain things, and you get what happens with comfort, which is one of the greatest thrills for me, is it becomes more about your personality at that point and less about the technicals.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
you can really start building on top of it once you're comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. It becomes less about, oh man, I just screwed that up, I pressed the wrong button again, and more about, so tell me a little bit more about that, or having additional questions for the podcast guest, or, you know, how you're reacting with your community, how you're chatting with your community and all that. Again, as things get smoother, and this goes all the way back to what we opened this podcast with, allowing yourself layers. If you throw everything in at once, and I speak from experience, if you throw everything at once, you're going to screw everything up because of muscle memory, because of where you're used to certain things being, all that good stuff. So if you layer it in, you're less likely to make those mistakes, and you can be more relaxed going in.
Right.
And that relaxation factor, and since this has come up, I cannot stress this enough, is really, really, really important. The more you do it, it's the 10,000 hour rule. The more you do it, the more comfortable you become, and the more your talents will show.
And then also, the more you'll expand on your ideas once you're comfortable. Because when you're comfortable, you'll start going, oh, maybe I'll try this new thing. And I'll try this new thing, right? And you're not still learning the basics, and you just keep growing that comfort zone, and then you can just do all this crazy stuff all of a sudden.
Do all the things.
Yeah.
All the things.
Yeah, all the things. It's one of my favorite things to see is when a streamer reaches enthusiast level, where it goes beyond, okay, I've got my camera, I got my mic, and that's a very important stage, by the way. I'm not saying that's a bad stage. It's where we all start. But I've got my camera, I've got my mic, and I got my computer.
Yeah.
I'm good to go. All right. But once once people start to move past that level and they start to get into, all right, I like the way I sound, but I want more out of that, you know, or I want a warmer sound, or I want more. I'm just using mics as an example, but you know, I want warmer sound, or I want my diction to be clear, or anything like that. And then they start researching ways to do that.
Right.
And then for the first time, for a lot of people, that's their first introduction to like XLR versus USB and what's going to be better for them, and pop filters. And
I wish I had a picture of every evolutionary stage that I went through streaming, because man, when I first started, that would have been a great picture to look at right now.
I know. I wish I had some of that too. I wish I had, you know, I almost wish I had a videography of it, like everything that's gone on. Because if you go back, and I'll go back to the VODs real quick. You go back and watch an old VOD, and it's like, wow, I sounded like that. Wow, I looked like that. That's how I was handling. That's how I was rolling marbles in the beginning. Really?
Yeah. And then you're like tiny in the corner. Hello.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're really small down in the corner, and it's like, what do you like? How do we? And you look at that stuff, and it's how did anybody watch me back then? You know,
that's a good point too. Make your camera big. That's something I've learned over time for sure. Like my camera was so small for.
You're the one talking, so you got to be the center of the show. Yeah, even though you don't want to look at you. Right. Which is mostly the case, right? You don't want to look at yourself.
Right.
Like,
that's
get
why
me
people
small
turn
down
on
there.
Their camera, because they don't want to look at themselves.
Yeah.
But how many people want to look at them? So it's like so that self-consciousness is a killer, man.
It is.
Yeah. Don't hide. Don't. Some people do that just because they're hiding, you know, or they feel if they make themselves bigger, like there's going to be some something that they're not. A lot of times, well, some of it's just a technical mistake in the beginning, but I've also seen streamers do that because they're self-conscious about something with their appearance.
Right.
And if that's the case, still make yourself bigger on screen. If you're going to be there, but find either it's something that you're just going to have to let go, or use some that's, again, it's worth the research. Do the technology to see what you need to do to change it, kind of thing. You know, it's there's so many things that can go on. You know, it's like I get conscious about being red-faced on stream. So I've had to do a lot of homework into camera trick. I shouldn't say camera trickery, but camera techniques, how to reduce the redness in the picture, how to change my lighting around a little bit, which I've done just to smooth some of that out. Because if you laugh a lot on stream, you end up red-faced. It's just kind of how it works. But
if you wear more red, it'll just blend in.
Yeah. Camera trickery.
Hey.
Martha. Profanity.
There you go. Just make the entire room red.
Yeah, red screen, just blend it in.
Red screen, red everything. You know what? You're just gonna show up at my next stream, and it's just gonna be one big red block right there.
You see, everything is red. You see your face, but then when you start laughing, you disappear more and more and more.
Oh man.
Another battle that I fought, and I'll only bring it up because Ginger Peanut brought it up. I looked over there, was shininess off my head.
Yeah, I mean, what did I call you? I called you that last night or something. The shiniest man on Twitch.
Yeah. And it's more about you'll never, like, you got to remember, and guys, honestly, and I'll admit this in front of the whole community here right now, like, it's something that made me very self-conscious was the shine off my head. Not that it bothered me, but on stream it's distracting. So I worked on ways to soften it up, and it's basically called the diffusion technique. So it's less shine and more glow is what you're going for. And once long-term plans, once I of course get some different equipment in here and I get the different desk and the key lights and all that, I'll be able to position the lighting differently so that it's not so. The big problem is I have a light right here that bounces right off the side of my forehead. But for right now, again, you know, talk about letting it go. I worked with it to the point where I was happy with it. And I knew it wasn't as obnoxious. And then after that, I just had to let it go. It's like, I've done as much as I can. We move on from that point. But if something's bugging you, actively work to fix it. Even if it's hard. If it's hard, that's better, because while you're teaching yourself how to get rid of whatever the problem is, you're gonna learn a whole bunch of new techniques that you never knew even existed before. YouTube is really your friend in that regard. And, you know, whether it's sound, whether it's lighting, whether it's picture, whether it's whatever, but getting back onto original topic here. Yeah. You know, get yourself a little bit larger there, because you got to remember people are watching you on mobile too, and they won't get to see you as easily. So that's really important as well. If you want to connect.
Thinking about mobile, I think I don't do that enough at all. I mean, I mention it here and there when it comes to like the races and marbles and things like that, but there's so many other aspects that you like, something you just mentioned that you got to think about when it comes to mobile people.
Yeah.
Or even just thumbnails too, because that's something way early on when I first started streaming was thumbnails. That's how people see you. I never looked at the titles going down. I just looked at the thumbnails.
Yeah. Right.
This looks cool. So I started thinking about that more. So I made my head bigger. And I also made the zoom in thing, and sometimes I would just sit in front of the camera zoomed in and be like stare at the camera for a little while and be a weirdo. But then I know that after a while it's going to get snapshotted for the thumbnail, and someone's going to see that and be like, this guy looks weird, this is more interesting or whatever.
Yeah. That's actually one of the reasons now why thumbnails are one of the reasons now why I open up with just chatting, because then I'm right there great big on the screen and people can see. They see me, Marbles is behind me, and the chat is right there next to me, which is what I want people to see. It's like, oh, all right, because then it's eye grabbing. You know, it gets attention basically. When you're looking at so many streams across, And if you're not being, and I'm talking about complete inactivity, like obviously when you're running a game, and it doesn't matter if it's marbles or anything else, people need to be able to see the game, what's going on. But what I'm talking about is there needs to be a dynamic, and it's really good for your community and entertainment, and it's really good along the lines of what we're talking about here with thumbnails. If you have that dynamic where sometimes you're really small, sometimes you're really big and up in the camera and all that. My saxophone scenes are great for that, by the way. But if you're changing things, and Spooo, you're a great example. Like your stream has all kinds of entertainment built into it.
Right.
You know, sometimes you
It's always
look at the screen.
Yeah.
My favorite, Spooo, I got to tell you, my favorite for you was one time I looked at your thumbnail, and it was right after the Spooble win. So there's like 6 of you on screen. I'm like, oh my God, that is so, I almost took a screenshot because it was so perfect. But
yeah, that's a good thumbnail that pops up for sure.
But having those different dynamics built into your stream also help increase your, it's not just about entertainment. That is really the main part of it. But in terms of thumbnails, having those different dynamics also make more dynamic thumbnails.
Right.
And that helps bring people to your stream as well. As Twitch continues to work on right now, and we've said it so many times, that the Twitch doesn't have the greatest discoverability, that you need to be out other places. They don't have systems in place like even YouTube has, where they've got that algorithm that puts more recommendations, things like that. However, that is changing. Twitch is making a lot of improvements very rapidly, by the way. Like pretty soon we're going to be able to put our own intro videos up on our channels when they completely switch everybody over to the new system. There's going to be you're going to have calendars that you can actually post on your channel, all that good stuff. They're completely revamping it. And when that changes, this stuff is going to become that much more critical.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as they're front and center.
Discoverability, like that's going to be your main discoverability on Twitch. So that if people know your schedule, and I think I'm going to go out and watch a bunch of intro videos for sure. Like, cause that's going to show you who people are. So I think that's going to be a huge thing for streamers in general, and something people should think about early of what you want your intro video to be and how you're going to reach people with it.
An idea that came to me the other day is, especially for people that have been streaming for a while now, go into your clips through the channel back end and see what your most popular clips are. What did people love the most? What did they think was the funniest or the most unique? Or because that's going to very much speak to, not that you'll necessarily use that particular clip, but it's going to very much speak to what people love about you. Because if you've got a clip with a whole lot of views, it was probably a really special moment on stream. And that will give you at least an indicator of what you should be including, because you've only got 1 minute with those intro videos.
Right.
So try to find something that's going to give the most impact. And if it's true that you have about 5 seconds to get somebody's attention, hit them hard and hit them fast right up front.
Yeah, welcome to my channel.
Talk like Shens, you know. But really though, like really don't just treat that as something to kind of toss to the side, everybody. And the only reason I haven't done mine yet is because Twitch really hasn't converted yet over to that new system. We're still getting those bars across the top of the screen that say, you know, coming soon, here's the new, you know, here's what's new. But
it's just for content creators to set up. You can set your stuff up for when it does go live.
But it's not actually live yet. But start thinking about it and getting it up there. And guys, double post your content. If you create that intro video, 1 minute can be used everywhere. So throw it up on Twitter when you do it. Throw it up on Instagram, Facebook, wherever you have a preference, or have a preference, or you know, have a presence. Get it up there.
Get noisy.
Yeah, and just getting that thing done is huge. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get the hype marble video done, was because it's just a core video that you can show people, and that's such a great thing to have as a content creator. Just like, hey, you want to know about me? Boom, here's a minute video. Or you want to see what I'm about? There you go. Like anywhere.
Yeah.
And a minute is nothing. Good. People can watch it for a minute.
Yeah, timing's huge. for that kind of stuff to be as quick as possible, right?
Yeah.
Get your message across and let people know who you are, because if they don't know who you are yet, they don't care about your in-depth story. They just want to know the
what's
quick one.
gonna
What's
grab
going on
their
here?
attention. It's gonna grab their attention.
Yeah.
But here's a question:
Again.
Will the intro, like, if you see a channel live, are you gonna go to the live channel or watch the intro first?
I think I'm gonna start watching intros a lot.
Yeah.
Just to see what people put together, honestly, or
Right.
if they the effort or something, and that's an easy way to follow someone too. Like, if you just like their intro video, rather than trying to like hang out in their channel and see if you like the atmosphere, that'd be a good way to just immediately kind of know that, or at least maybe push you to go inside and be like, I liked it. Let me see if I like it more inside, and hit a follow button. I see myself doing that. Maybe not a lot of people. I keep cutting you off. Go ahead, Stan.
No. I know it's over Discord. There's a slight delay, but
yeah.
The thing is that if you're live, people are going to, that's the first thing they're going to see. I mean, Twitch has already come out and said that you're going to, if you're live, the people are going to see you live when they come to your channel. They'll have to manually go to get to that video. But if you're not live, then that video will be more immediately available.
Yeah.
And something along the lines of what the two of you were talking about before, it does show effort. And don't forget that the more things that you put in, like when I go to somebody's channel to check them out and there's no VODs to watch, there's no highlights, there's no anything, it's like the whole thing looks dead. And it's not that people consciously do that, they just don't realize that those little things are very, 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 very critical.
Right.
Highlights especially. Highlights actually have more reach and impact than I think a lot of people realize. But being able to go back and watch certain content kind of on demand makes a really big difference.
Right.
It makes a really big difference, because then you can get a sense of it. Because for me personally, like you guys are talking about the order you're going to be watching things in, for me personally, it's going to be, all right, first it's going to be the intro. And then if I like the intro, I'm going to want to know a little bit more about them. And then I will actually go look for highlights or VODs just to see kind of how they handle things.
It's like the cover of a book, right?
Mm-hmm.
A good cover of a book will make you open that book.
Yeah, that's actually a great analogy, Spooo. But that's really what it is,
Yeah.
Or, it's outdated reference now, because now we have reviews and all that. But think about how many times we saw games or something like that we didn't really think much of, and then somebody tells us about it, or you see a preview video for it online, and it's like, how did I miss that? That looks really cool. That's what that 1 minute is.
Now
that's your preview video.
I wonder, are people going to I doubt people are going to stop doing their intros to the stream because of these videos, but maybe who knows?
You mean like when you get sometimes when people get rated, they have their video that they play for people? Is that what you mean?
No, I mean like your intro, your starting stream video.
Oh, like the full. Okay, I got you.
Like, I don't know. It's just a random thought that popped in my head. Like, will people stop doing intro to their streams when they have like this intro video already built into the system?
That's a good question. But I mean, like, you want something playing for when people are joining your stream for the first time and just hanging out.
And there's people who do like a gathering type of thing, like at the beginning of the stream. I'll use John Sandman as an example. He does like the roll call, and it's like this huge.
Yeah, it's an event.
Yeah, it's an event. So, which is genius in my opinion. It's like getting everybody gathered. It's like it's a whole interactive.
Yeah.
It's a welcome.
So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interactive welcome.
People are gonna want to come in during that because it's like, yeah, let's go.
We can open up for some questions. I did see a question. I don't know if you guys want to bounce off this. I think it's an interesting discussion. I think we've discussed it before, but how long marbles will last?
Well, when was it invented? When was marbles invented?
Like the true invention of marbles, like not marbles on stream.
It's still going from that first invention, right? So.
It's true. So it hasn't died. Period.
Yeah.
Forever. But yeah, I don't know. I had the conversation with Spooo not long ago. I know one thing for sure is the way it feels. It feels like it takes a good grip of a community and really becomes a good staple in that community, even if it's for like however the streamer decides to implement it, right? A day a week, a day a month, every day, however they choose to do that. But it always seems to take a grip in a very unique way. I don't know if you guys want to bounce off that.
I with that question, I don't think that, and I got to be careful what I say right now, but I don't think anything is going to replace marbles or cause this to go away until the studio decides they're going to replace it with something else. That's actually how I am viewing it now, because as some of you know, I've been experimenting with other community-based games on stream. I've also had a chance for some sneak peeks at some things that are coming up the road. There's nothing like this. Not even really on the horizon. There's nothing like this. And there's nothing that can scale. A lot of what's out on the horizon is being focused on, they're focusing on streamers that are, I would say, are maybe at max 40. At max 40. All right. So they're not really, the game isn't designed to scale. Whereas with marbles, you can scale all the way up to 1,000 participants. As long as as long as what you have can handle that, you can scale all the way up there. So there's again, the trick is anything that's created for community interaction, and this is one of the things that makes marbles so unique. Anything that is scaled for community interaction also needs to have that community aspect of not being so distracting that the streamer can't focus on chat. One of the greatest strengths that marbles has is the fact that we are not so distracted by the game we're playing that we can pay more attention to chat. We can almost micromanage it at times if we want to. And a lot of what is coming out, again, they're heavier, more action-based games, and you have to focus on the game in front of you, and that pulls away from the community aspect.
Right. Well, there's like a disconnect.
Yeah.
It's kind of interacting because you're playing the game and they're able to do stuff in chat to affect it, but there's just that disconnect.
Right.
I don't know what disconnect it is, but like the physical, I don't know what you want to call it. But there's just that disconnect there because you're focusing on something and the chat is focusing on something and you're not focusing on each other.
Yeah. Well, anything that anybody tries to do now, and I've talked to Mike about this a few times, is they're going to have to play catch up now, because Marbles already has 2 years of experience in this space, basically. Plus, it's being designed by a streamer.
It's the strength of community too.
There's huge strength in that, and yes, and that allows you to. That provides perspective that not every game developer has. The other thing is that Marbles now has evolved to the point where we always knew that our communities had a stake in what was going on screen, because they actually dropped the marble on there and everybody's waiting for the winner. But with this latest iteration of the app, now people have even more of a stake in it. Now it's really like their player in the game, the card, right down to the card, the pin, the skin, the modifier, everything. And we've created such a community ecosystem with the community days, with the tournaments, all of that. Whoever tries to come in now into this space again, they have a really big challenge ahead of them.
Right.
At this point, if they want to try to catch up.
To build up a community. I mean, how long has Marbles been going? Over 2 years now, and we've built community, and that's just not an easy thing to do when you release a game, because you do have to be out there like Pixel is to start creating that community. You can't just plop a game out there and expect a community to build out of it, unless it's a AAA thing or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You put a lot of marketing behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to build on what you what you just said, to build on the whole community aspect, it's gotten to the point now. It used to be, and I remember saying this on stream at one point, that as streamers, we really have to start taking some onus on ourselves to build out our own communities. And the way a lot of this starts out is it'll start out, especially if it's grassroots, which is the way Marbles kind of started. It builds out around one person. Well, the one person, and it was a very fortunate thing in this case, was the developer. It was, we were all hanging out with Mike in Mike's stream. And now what has happened is there are a number of streamers now that are really formed their own communities. And it's not just about Mike anymore. You've got people that have built their communities on Marbles, and you have people with established communities that are also playing Marbles on top of it. So now you have all of these individual communities, and the beautiful thing is, at least with the communities that built up on Marbles, they've still managed to stay connected to the main Marbles community while building their own. And it's been this really, really cool thing to watch happen over the last year and a half.
Definitely. To watch it kind of spider out in a sense. That's what I was thinking when you're like, it started with Mike. Mike created this thing. We all watched him for a while, grabbed onto it, then started doing our own things. And now we're building on our own things with Marbles and creating our communities. And our communities are branching out more. It's just like this whole spider web of greatness. And that's how communities go. That's how it goes with communities. They just
the marble web.
The marble web.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of questions I got. I can hammer through these probably pretty quick. Will there be a chance to custom colored names? Colored names, the way I perceive it right now is I like it that it's, I mean, you guys can reflect too, that it's the same across all channels. And so, and this is an argument I take to even the channel point structure, is like some people are arguing, hey, let me define the custom channel points and how much you get and everything. See, I disagree with that statement, because I think it's better if it's same across the board, because with so many viewers watching multiple channels, like you don't just go on Twitch and watch one person.
Yeah.
You probably go to Twitch and bounce around a lot. And if everybody understands the concept of channel points and how they're given out and how much you get, then you go to a new channel and you're not bombarded with all these new things to learn. And so it goes back to the names. That's why the names are the same color across channels, is so that the community is the same across the board. It's like you can go and understand and consume the basics right away, and then you just need to learn the streamer and what they're doing and the content they're providing. So that's my thing on name colors. I mean, here's another one. Have you considered moving Community Day to Saturday or Sunday? I'm guessing that's a time zone issue. We've spoken to this in the background a little bit, and I've bounced off you guys. And this walks into the idea of like Community Day, Friday, is all day. And we have different community managers across all the different countries and time zones and everything. And then everybody runs their own Community Day for that time zone. And of course you could cross and go to play with other streamers and stuff and the different content creators and community managers, but imagine that was a whole day. Yeah. Right? Then you cover the whole time zone, and it truly is a community day, even though it might be different branches of the community. Not everybody speaks the same language, and you have to understand that everybody's going to be different and find their own places to hang out. Yeah. Yeah. And I, that was, when you actually brought that up, I still think that's a great idea. I mean, it's something that we'll have to grow into. Oh yeah, you can't just snap your fingers and bring community managers of all languages. Like, I took 2 years each to find you guys, and like, you just keep your ears open and ears to the ground and see who's coming around and see who's good. Then you notice somebody, and then it's like, okay, now they're noticed. Now we got to pay attention to what they're doing and the message they're sharing to the world and around Marbles. So you have 100%. It's going to take time to build out that kind of idea. Yeah, because it's a manpower issue of like, you need the community manager level in each country, and then there's also the language barrier issues of like, how do we get to know these people? Yeah, when you're of different languages, right? Yeah, we have so many people. I'm always very grateful. We have so many people that speak, English at least as a second language or something like that, so we can still communicate with them. But as the community is growing, we're finding more and more cases where
people aren't doing that. You know, they don't speak two languages. They speak their native language. It might be Spanish. It might be German. You just don't know.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to eventually, yes, get to that point where you have different community managers, and because they'll be able to communicate better, they'll be able to, they'll be able to share the joy and share the passion, because there's no longer that language barrier there.
The United Nations of Marbles.
You got it.
Will there ever be ears and tails? Maybe. I mean, development questions are maybes.
A lot
Change the
of
background of
ideas
the
out
map,
there.
maybe. Are you gonna make loads of new maps in the future? I mean, there's 54 in the system. We're always adding more.
And there's
Updating them.
thousands of
And there's
community maps.
thousands of community maps. You really shouldn't be any lack of racing content, right?
I was gonna say, yeah. If I had any wish, it would be we could have more favorite maps, because they're getting to be so many good maps. Oh my
great.
gosh!
And everybody's got their own styles, right? And you start
Yeah.
like I was just browsing the category yesterday, and I saw somebody playing one of Voltage maps, and I was just browsing. I was like, oh, that's a Voltage map, and I checked. Yep. And it's so cool to see styles coming out. It's like it's so beautiful to see.
Yeah, there's and the builders are really like it's almost like looking at a painting with a signature on it. Like it's getting that distinct.
Yeah.
You know how they're handled, and you know the fact that they've, you know, some of the streamers, like I'll use Shen's as an example here, like Shen's with his 1 hour tracks, and he releases a video explaining to you like it's a map that is so long it needs a companion video so you know how to run it correctly. But that's still really cool.
Yeah.
That's still it's got its own instruction manual, and it's a fun one to run if you want to run a 1 hour map. Like it's designed that way. It's not set to troll you or anything like that. And I mean, it's really cool. And everybody's got their different tastes and different styles. And what I see happening up the road is that certain streamers are going to gravitate very closely to certain builders and run their maps probably a little bit more exclusively,
right,
because they've bonded.
Exactly.
Kind of thing, you know? So
good. It's like the way I bonded with Spooo in my maps.
True.
Here's a good one. What made you pick Spooo and StandardDamage to be community managers? So the way that I fill positions with marbles, at least the community side, is people who are just doing it without being like, you know, they just need the title. All you do is give them the title and they're already doing it. Like there's somebody who just dropped into the position and was acting like a community manager already. And so it was an easy decision once I met them in person. Yeah. Right? It was easy.
the one thing you said to me when you first brought me on that will always stick with me, and I know you said something similar to Spooo, was just keep doing what you're doing. I'm not asking you or expecting you to do anything extra. Now, of course, we were both willing to throw ourselves right in there and do all kinds of fun things on top of, but it goes back to, if there's something that you want, behave like it.
Yeah.
But behave like you're there already. You know, it's really that simple. It was like, and I didn't set out to become a community manager. I just wanted to be a good rep for the game, because the game had provided me an opportunity that I hadn't had before. It was allowing me to reach my audience for the first time. Like I finally found people that I had commonalities with, and I could start building a community on top of that. So I wanted to make sure that I remained a good representative of the game, kept things in a positive light, didn't take things too far off the deep end, or start, you know, cranking and complaining and all that. And that's what, and I'm saying this for the benefit of everybody that's watching right now, that if there's something that you want, again, act like you're already there. Set the example, because even if you don't obtain a position or something like that from it, you will improve, because you're looking at it from a different angle. You're looking at it from an outside angle, which is something that not everybody can do.
I definitely did not ever think about community manager as a role, or even working for the team in general. I just fell in love with the game, and it was the mix we all talk about. It's interactive, it's exciting, it's competitive. Like there's all sorts of great aspects, and I just went crazy with it when I first found it. And I was like, this game's blowing up, man. This game's gonna be huge.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna love it. And you needed a certain amount of people to get a race going. So I was jumping around and telling all these people about marbles, and it just became a natural thing to get people involved and to teach them and be like, go to the devs channel on Fridays, go win some stuff. It's crazy. You never know if you're gonna win. Get involved. And like, man, I just absolutely went crazy with it. And I guess Pixel respected that. I also got very creative with it. I was just trying to build anything I could off of it. It was a pretty simple game when it first came out. So the names of the maps, that's what stuck out to me. And I was just like, I can build something around the name, the dojo. Sure.
You know, for me, I was just happy and honored that I had that much of a connection and that much access to the developer of the game that I chose to play. It's like, do you know how many streamers would kill to have that level of interactivity with their developer? But Mike was accessible. You know, it was like, if I had an idea or I had a question, I could reach out to him. You know, I say, hey, I had this idea. Do you think this would be smart? Do you think maybe it wouldn't be? And he'd give me the brutal, straight up answer. And it was like, that's awesome. That's fantastic.
And a lot of the time he'll just show up to your stream too.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even have to go to him. He'll show up to your stream. And then, I mean, that's up to him if he wants to say something about your stream to you, but he will just show up to your stream. So it's like, I don't know, he wants to check everybody out, see what everyone's up to, if they're how they're playing marbles, because everybody plays it differently, and how people are reacting to certain things that he changed, or if people are being super negative about something and why, you know.
Yeah, I think it's really important to go around and just pop in and just watch for a bit and see what people are doing, right? If it's if it's an early person getting into marbles, like their first or second stream, you can really get a grip on the information they know just from the game, which usually isn't that much. But some people dive into it more and are like, know the slow motion and know all this stuff. And it's like, oh, how'd you guys figure this out? Well, you know, I looked into the controls and in the settings and figured it out. And, oh, interesting. And then their perception of the game. I mean, nobody really absorbs the whole leaderboard system on their first stream.
Oh, yeah.
Some people are like, how is this person in here with 1,000 races? What does this mean?
Yeah.
They're still trying to figure out how to control the camera in the beginning. It's really it's amazing the things that we take for granted now. You know, it's like we, you know, once you start to really master things, it's a very different experience than watching somebody play it for the first time. But yeah, they're like, you know, sometimes there's been a couple times like where I've gone into a stream and mentioned the leaderboard, and they're like, there's a leaderboard? It's like, oh wow.
Right.
Yeah, you know.
And that just goes back to time, right? And you got to just dive in slowly and evolve through marbles. Like, you're not going to be able to get it all at once.
Yeah. And you're not going to have 100 viewers on your first stream.
Yeah. Exactly. You know, just find that aspect you like, learn about it, and then if there's other things you like, just slowly move on, and you'll end up learning everything. Like, I don't know everything about marbles at all, and I've been here since season 2.
Yeah, because we all interact with our own space of marbles now, right? Because there's so many different new things.
There's a lot to do.
Yeah, it's crazy. And LT is like one of the biggest awesome marblers I've watched over the time, where he first joined us in the streams and just watched, and then he started streaming, and now he's been going 360 plus days straight, I believe, already. Yeah. And if you look at his data, if you look at his stats, like, he's grown consistently over the time because he's put so much work in it. It's been consistent work. And it's what I did at the start of my streaming. I did a year straight. And I think it teaches you so much doing that run. Just doing a lot of streaming in a condensed period of time. It just shows you so much about the platform and how it works.
I mean, that's just a pure example of the consistency, like, and how it works. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's, I mean, I'm out of questions here, I think, unless I missed some in chat. There was one that Kitten saw. I saw one earlier. It wasn't an official. Kitten, did you ask a question? Streamers are starting to get together in group streams. Oh, yeah, currently local leaderboards. Yeah, it was a question about local leaderboards. Yeah, we'd love to get shared leaderboards for streamers to do co-streams and co-create content. But we just need a system where you can interact online, and if it takes a server, then there's going to be a cost, and we just need to weigh that cost and see how it plays out. Yeah, guys, thanks so much for hanging out. That was a good one. We're 10 minutes over.
It was a fun one. It was a fun one. And we'll say it one more time. Don't be afraid to reach out to any of us if you've got questions or anything on growth or anything like that. Again, it doesn't have to be just limited to the podcast. We will always try to help or get you at least in the right direction to get the help that you need at any point. I have been doing my best, everybody on the Pixel Discord side. I have been, because the Pixel Discord is just blown up. So I've been trying to focus in on certain channels, but the How to Grow channel, I've really been in there. So guys, if you have questions and you're in the Pixel Discord, ask them there. I do sweep through once a day and I will check. And if there's anything in there that's come up, I'll be more than happy to answer it. So don't hesitate, guys. Get into the Discord, get involved.
And we've also been developing a course. The second run of Twidget's Zero to Streaming course just finished yesterday. So 4 days, Monday through Thursday, you can learn to stream. So it's every other week. So next week will be no classes, and then the week after will be the classes again, and it's repeating. So if you're able to pop into some of them and you want to go to the next one, you're welcome. If you're new to this, you can pop in. If you need a refresher, come on in. There's just so many programs we're trying to build out to take, if you want to get involved in streaming, to lift you up as best as we can and give you the right information and tools to be a successful streamer. And we've got the overlays on Streamlabs now, and Owned is going to be adding it to their website. So there's just lots of stuff to really frame yourself with marbles and the community, and just so much great knowledge. The Spooo and Standard here, like, we're just constantly sharing everything we can with you guys. If you have questions on how things work, and then how to dive deeper into marbles with tournaments and events and all this stuff, there's just always stuff.
On Sundays, I do a networking thing where each night we get together with marble racers who want to get involved and just kind of go out and meet people. There's no sort of hardcore rules or anything. It's just come at your own leisure. If you want to hang out in marble streams, it's up to you. It's a networking tool, and we kind of just go out together in small groups and race together on Sunday nights. So 7 p.m. every Sunday, and then we hang out in my Discord, which might get moved to Pixels or both, or we'll figure something out. It's kind of just getting started out, but it's a great networking tool. It's amazing going to see newer marblers and just seeing the reaction. It's so like wholesome, the reaction of new marblers, and teaching them stuff, and like them, you see their eyes light up and they're like, oh man. And then when 6 to 10 people drop into their channel and they have 2 people racing with them, they're like, what's going on? Yeah. It's so much fun. I love it.
Yeah, I popped in for a bit. It's really good. You're just constantly like popping in and hang out with the streamer for.
And we'll hang out in 20 minutes in one channel, and then I'll drop another link and we'll do another channel. And you kind of we don't like to keep up too many at once. Maybe we'll go through 4 to 6 in a night over 2 to 3 hours, and just kind of hang out. We don't want to spread ourselves too thin, and we want to make sure we're giving the streamer the attention that they deserve.
Oh yeah, Jamie, is there anything you want to shout out?
Just super quick. I've been getting more and more questions because I've been talking about it more and more on my stream about when the advanced classes are going to start. I am hoping a week from Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. Of course, I've got that tournament with Enders. So obviously it's not going to be this week coming up, but I'm hoping by next week to start getting some lesson plans together. And we're going to start that. I'm going to start calling Tuesdays Classy Tuesdays. And I'm going to start building some of that out for you guys so that we can get into some more of the advanced stuff, because you guys have been asking me about everything from Twitch growth to technicals, advanced technicals, like how to get, better sound, things like that. So I'm going to start putting together a series of lessons on that. And the way we're going to work it is when I start up the stream, we'll do a little bit of just chatting, and then we'll move into our first class. And then we'll roll marbles for a little bit. And then at a set time, and I'm still working this out, everybody, but at a set time, we will do a second copycat class. It'll be the same class as what we covered in the beginning. So that way, we're going to cover 2 time slots in a day, is the idea. So that for our friends across the Atlantic who have been feeling a little bit left out on these classes, you'll be able to join in with me for those. For people that are still getting home for work on the North American side, same thing, guys. But I watch for announcements on that. I'll let you know exactly when that's going to happen. I'm hoping by a week from Tuesday, but no guarantees there. It might be another week or 2 before I can actually get that all together.
Hell yeah. Lots of things in the community.
With the night racing, I do want to expand it to more nights and different times so we can get a lot of more people involved. But like going back to what we were talking about, time. I want to slowly evolve it into something and build it into something great, and not try to do so much at once.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for the hype train, by the way. Everybody who participated. And we'll see you guys in about 45 minutes for Community Day, and then Spooo will take over at 4 p.m. on his channel. All right, guys.
Thanks for coming out, guys.
Bye, guys.
Everyone. Bye.